Good morning, everyone. I hope you are all enjoying a great week. We appreciate you spending part of your morning with us for the Fast Chat. I'm Rochelle Thomas, Energy Manager with the San Joaquin Valley Clean Energy Organization, and we are here with the Fast Chat as we are every second Tuesday of the month. We work really hard to bring you financing and project information in a way that works best for your schedule. Fast. Okay, before I dive in, we've got to do our housekeeping. So all of your microphones have been muted upon joining the call. If you have any questions at all, please go ahead and submit them through the chat box. You can do so at any point during the presentation. In fact, I very much encourage you to go ahead and submit your questions as soon as they come to mind, because if you're anything like me, you just might forget. We'll be sure to designate time at the end to address those questions. If you do submit a question and for whatever reason we aren't able to get to it, for example, we just might need to do some additional research, or it could be possible that we'd run out of time, be sure to keep an eye out for our follow-up email. We'll provide responses to any unanswered questions in that email. We'll also provide a link to the recording of this presentation, as well as links to any other resources we discuss during the call. Deal? Let's jump in. So the Fund It Fast Chat has always kind of focused heavily on government subsidized grant and program funding through investor-owned utilities. I thought it would be a good time to kind of think a little bit outside the box and take a look at generating funding from private sector investors. I don't think I need to explain what a tried and trusted financing tool municipal bonds are, but I do want to highlight that there is such a need for investment in things like infrastructure, energy efficiency, resiliency, and renewables, and so much more. In fact, that's the whole reason behind why we started doing the Fast Chat in the first place, because local governments all by themselves probably won't be able to source all of the necessary capital to do all of this work that needs to be done out there. So the municipal bond market is absolutely massive. Today, investors hold a total of $3.7 trillion worth of US municipal debt. Another fun fact, more than 70% of these investors are actually individuals, consisting of either retail investors or those that purchase municipal funds. Out of that $3.7 trillion in municipal bond debt, only $600 billion of it represents taxable investments. So I've included this pie chart that you see here so you can kind of get an idea of the ratio of the taxable investment versus the tax exempt investment opportunity in the market. So the taxable portion of it only equates to about a little over 16%, which means investors have a lot of opportunity to make tax-free investments. And why is that good, you might ask? Well, some individuals do have a very large tax liability, and the tax-exempt bond market is attractive to them because it offers opportunity to earn a return on investment without increasing that tax liability. So we know that we know what municipal bonds are, but what are green municipal bonds? And it's actually pretty simple. A green municipal bond is one where the issuer commits to using 100% of the bond proceeds to environmentally friendly purposes. Things like renewable energy, clean transportation, sustainable water management, and lots of other green stuff. So I would also like to mention that the Climate Bonds Initiative, this organization, I'm going to reference them a couple of times throughout the presentation. They are very heavily involved in a lot of these processes. So just to give you an idea of who these folks are, I pulled this statement directly from their website. Climate Bonds Initiative is an international investor-focused not-for-profit. We're the only organization working solely on mobilizing the $100 trillion bond market for climate change solutions. So One example of their involvement in this whole process is right now there isn't like a universal standardized method or set list of project types that would qualify a project as green. The Climate Bonds Initiative is currently developing that institutional guidance, those standards for the green bond market. So here's a little bit of an idea of where they're at with it right now. So on this chart, it shows the standards that they've already developed and then the standards that are in the making. So at this point, they've already completed standards for solar, wind, bus rapid transportation systems, and low carbon buildings. Standards for things like bioenergy, water, low carbon transport like rail and EVs, and agriculture and forestry, those are in development, so coming soon. As I just said, a green municipal bond is exactly the same as an ordinary bond. The only difference being is you use the proceeds for environmentally friendly purposes. However, there is another layer to this. So you can say your bond is green, or you can have your bond certified through an external agency. So a non-certified green bond issuer would track and report out on the use of the proceeds to ensure green compliance to their investors. On the other hand, a certified green bond goes a few steps further. For a green bond to become certified, the issuing agency must undergo a certification process involving a third party. So it's actually a pretty simple process, and the bond is certified through the Climate Bonds Standards Scheme. And so that's, another way to think of it is, I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with the Good Housekeeping Seal of Approval. That's kind of the same idea behind certifying the bonds green through the Climate Bond Standard Scheme. So the first step of the process is to qualify the project or asset. It must be included in the Climate Bond Standard eligibility criteria. The second step is the issuer will then work with an independent verifier. There's actually a whole list of of independent verifiers on the website, and I'll provide a link to that in the follow-up email. But such agencies like Ernst & Young, KPMG, TrueCost, those are some of the agencies that do the independent verifying. And then the final step is a final verification report is then sent to the Climate Bond Standards Board for review, after which they will render a decision. So as you might have already guessed, the process to certify a bond takes a little bit more time and of course involves some additional fees and costs. So why would you go through all of that in order to certify the bond? Well, there are some benefits to having your bond certified green. One of those benefits is the potential to attract a more diverse group of investors. More investors means more capital. Green certification also lends credibility to the asset or the project. Certification can also sometimes include pricing advantages or benefits depending on the circumstances. And you can also kind of think of the certification, I personally like to think of it as like the Energy Star label, but for green bonds. I'd like to talk about some of the other ways to look at a green bond in comparison to an ordinary bond. So one of the keys to success of a green bond is if the green bond has the same yield and rating and a comparable price. In these situations, the green label on the bond becomes a bonus feature. On the other hand, investors, and there are some of those out there, investors that don't really care about the environment, aren't then deterred by the green label because the yield, the price, and the rating are all comparable to ordinary bonds. So this makes them attractive to everybody. Some other things to kind of keep in mind. I found some other much more recent research performed by a fairly large grouping of really prestigious business schools. Their research showed a couple of things. The first thing is that green municipal bonds actually yield about 0.06 percentage points below yields paid on otherwise equivalent bonds, so bonds not bearing the green label. The other thing is that the other thing the research showed was that most environmentally sensitive projects, such as pollution control and mass transit, are still being funded by ordinary bonds. So, why are these two things important and what does it show us? Well, local governments should be issuing more green bonds because the research is showing that investors may be willing to accept a lower return in order to hold bonds that are identified as more socially responsible. So these findings translate into savings for our local governments just by issuing bonds with a green label over issuing ordinary bonds to fund their projects. Green bonds don't differ from ordinary bonds in type, or I like to say flavor. Green municipal bonds come in the following flavors. So a general obligation bond has full recourse to the issuer, which means this bond would carry the same credit rating as any of the issuer's other bonds. A revenue bond means that repayment for those bonds comes from either taxes or user fees that are tied to the project or the asset that's funding. A project bond means that resource is only tied to the project's assets or revenue. And then a securitized bond, the recourse is tied to a group of financial assets that have been grouped together as collateral. Okay, so I have thrown a ton of information your way. Um, and you might even be wondering at this point, who's doing all this stuff? Well, I'm always excited to use one of our partners as an example. The city of Lemoore in recent years has experienced some pretty significant issues with their water quality. In the spring of 2019, last spring, Lemoore City Council approved the issuance of a green municipal bond in the amount of $27,380,000 to fund the construction of a new groundwater treatment plant at their well number 7, which is located on 18th and West Glendale Avenues in Lemoore. The completion is actually scheduled for mid to late 2020, so later on this year. Here I've listed some of the assumptions regarding the bond that I found in the city council meeting minutes. So the purpose of the bond was to raise $30 million for three new water treatment plants, a new well, and a 1 mg water storage tank. The final maturity of this particular bond will come to mature on June 1, 2049, and the all-in interest rate is 4.37%. So that's pretty competitive. The estimated cost to issue this bond is $200,000. And then the bond proceeds, so the bond itself will raise $30,757,000 and some change. The price of the bond is $27,670,000. So the bond was actually issued at a discount of just over $3 million, which is pretty good. This is a fairly large project, but it does show how, as an agency, you can use this funding method to build energy efficiency right into your capital improvement plan. The estimated operating cost of the groundwater treatment plant that is slated to be done this year will be 60 cents per 1,000 gallons of water processed. So that is extraordinarily low. In my research on municipal green bonds, I also came across a really interesting announcement from Wells Fargo that it just came out on March 4th, 2020. Wells Fargo Asset Management launches Municipal Sustainability Fund. So utilizing a municipal bond assessment framework developed in-house through the WFAM and ESG Impact Framework, which is a partnership involving municipal bond professionals and environmental, social, and governance professionals. So I wanted to call attention to this because it shows how much the green bond market has grown in recent years, and you can tell that by the amount of commercial interest in participation. So I've also found similar offerings through JP Morgan Chase and with Citibank. Okay, so I'm gonna pause for about a half a second here to see if anybody has any questions and check the chat. I don't see any questions yet, so I'll talk kind of slow if anything comes to mind. I want to remind everybody, let me advance my slide here. Here we go. As always, we appreciate you for spending time with us this morning. Please be sure to look out for our follow-up email later today, and that's going to contain all of the resources that we discussed this morning. We also invite you to connect with us on social media. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. You can also connect with us through email or on our website. Our sole purpose is to connect you with resources that will help you get your projects done. I encourage everyone listening, please share the Fast Chat with your friends, with your colleagues. You never know who might benefit from this information or even how this information might inspire ideas for new projects. Our next Fast Chat is on the calendar for June 9th at 10 a.m. We're going to announce that topic very soon. In the meantime, if you would like to listen to any of our Fast Chats, you can find them at sjvcleanenergy.org. Again, that's sjvcleanenergy.org under the resources heading. Thanks so much, everyone. Have an awesome week, and I hope you all stay safe and stay healthy.